The Ukraine-Russia war enters day 23 with Kiev reeling under Moscow's shelling. From Kharkiv to Kherson to Vyshegorod, Ukraine's cities are bruised and battered amid shelling. In Ukrainian capital Kiev, a building was seen in raging fire, while in Kharkiv, one of the largest markets in Eastern Europe, Barabashevo, was set ablaze. A kindergarten school too was left in ruins after attack in Kharkiv. In Kherson, citizens refused to accept handouts from the occupiers, and in Vyshegorod, Ukrainian flag was removed from the public administration building. The Russian strikes in Chernihiv claimed 53 lives. Devastating images came from Kiev's Svyato-Shinovsky area, where sharp flames can be seen ravaging in the air.
Грузинської випічки нема, фори нема. І горить строїтельний магазин.
It's day 23 of Russia's assault on Ukraine. 3 weeks on, the country has seen unprecedented death and destruction on its once bustling streets. Kharkiv is the worst-hit city, and Russia continues its attack targeting civilians in Mariupol, where a bomb shelter was attacked. Ukrainians have put up exceptional resistance to the Russians. Ukraine is showing unmatched fighting spirit. Here's a report.
Markets on fire. Schools shelled. Back-to-back strikes. Ukraine continues to face the unsparing onslaught by Putin's army. As Russia continues its invasion, there's bloodbath on the streets of Kyiv, Kharkiv, Mariupol, and many other cities and towns spread across Ukraine. The second biggest city of Kharkiv paints a picture of destruction. Airstrikes that rocked marketplaces left buildings on fire, smoldering and charred. The relentless attacks by Putin's forces didn't even spare schools. Plumes of smoke were seen emerging from a school that lies in ruins and totally devastated. Another badly hit city, Mariupol, has bodies lying on the streets. Target of multiple daily attacks, the city witnessed massive strike on a drama theatre where hundreds of civilians had taken shelter. The sprawling building was reduced to a pile of debris with hundreds trapped. As the Russian army advances towards the capital, attacks on Kyiv's suburbs continue. Residential buildings were seen on fire, with locals struggling to flee using destroyed bridges. Casualties continue to rise.
The Russian state has become an outspoken terrorist, and it is not ashamed. But it will be responsible for everything. The world is already beginning to understand that without the recognition of Russia as a terrorist state, it will be impossible to restore justice for Ukraine. It will be impossible to restore international order.
Today, another apartments building.
Boxing legend and Kyiv mayor Vitaly Klitschko didn't mince words, saying Russia is ruthlessly attacking civilians and not just military establishments.
Putin says he's only targeting military targets.
Bullshit. Sorry. Where is military target? This building is military target.
It's day 22 of the invasion, and Russia continues to attack cities, causing heavy damage. The city of Kharkiv continues to be worst hit. A market in Kharkiv was bombed, following which the fire raged on for hours, with smoke engulfing the nearby buildings as well.
Sviatslav Yurash, who was earlier seen taking up a gun against Russian forces, suffered a massive personal tragedy as he lost his girlfriend Alexandra in a Russian attack.
She will remain that voice which will be speaking to the world every single day from now on.
This hospital in Mariupol is the last one standing in the ruined city, with all others bombed out. Bodies are piling up as those doctors couldn't save are lined up in the basement, since the mortuary in the city is full to the brink. The bodies include those of infants who are grievously hurt. But the Ukrainians refuse to give up, inflicting significant damage on Russian military, targeting Russian tanks firing at shelters across the city of Mariupol. Ukrainian army also shot down a Russian chopper, valiantly fighting back and against insurmountable odds. With Rajesh Pawar and Seri Mirankov in Kyiv, Bureau Report, India Today.
The Russian invasion in Ukraine has left the country in ruins, houses burnt, commercial establishments destroyed. The horrifying visuals that have emerged show the extensive damage to the cities of Ukraine. Take a look at this report.
Captivating cathedrals, marvelous monasteries, historic monuments, and cities with grand landscapes. This was Ukraine for tourists holidaying in Europe's second largest country. Charred, engulfed in smoke, raging fire. Once brimming with life, markets, schools, and commercial establishments have now been reduced to rubble. The Russian assault on Ukraine paints a picture of massive devastation and destruction. The city of Mariupol has suffered significant damage to the urban infrastructure. The before and after images show the destruction that have been caused by the Russian troops. The residential buildings, commercial establishments destroyed beyond recognition in back-to-back attacks. In Mariupol, this drama theatre, serving as a shelter for hundreds of civilians, was bombed by Russian troops. The theatre, once home to nights of revelry and art, is now a ghost shelf of itself, with rescuers racing against time to extricate those lying under debris. Another city that has been hit the hardest is Chernihiv. After deadly attacks hit the city for weeks, the streets are filled with bodies. Horrifying images of locals carrying the injured and dead have surfaced that show the fatal aftermath of the attacks. A town in Donetsk region, Makivka, is in ruins. Residential buildings and markets are charred due to repeated shellings and missile attacks by the Russian army. Locals were seen coming together to repair the damage caused by the brutal Russian attacks. Once one of Europe's most beautiful countries, Ukraine lies in ruins. Its body battered, its spirit hurt, and soul aspiring for an end to the naked dance of aggression. Bureau Report, India Today.
Ukrainian President Zelenskyy is trying to keep up the motivation of his nation high for fighting the Russian troops. From meeting the injured civilians to soldiers to remaining defiant on his demands. Zelenskyy in doing all that he can. Here's more on that story.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the man of the hour, keeping the Ukrainian fighting spirit high, is motivating fellow citizens to protect the integrity of the country. The people's leader Zelenskyy on Thursday visited a family of injured civilians who suffered from shelling in Warsaw city.
Да? Тобто мы оккупировали TikTok.
The Ukrainian president also met personnel of State Emergency Service to thank them for their dedication. Ukrainian cities are reeling under the constant bombardment by Russian hellbirds. But people of the country have refused to bow down. As talks take place, Zelenskyy has made his demands clear. He wants the war to end, with security guarantees and sovereignty. He wants to ensure Ukraine's territorial integrity with real protection of Kyiv. The results of the talks will depend on how much Ukraine and Russia are willing to yield. Bureau Report, India Today.
Vladimir Putin and the army that he has sent to invade Ukraine have been accused of not making a distinction between civilian targets and military mistakes, because in today's day and age of satellite mapping, it would be hard for Russian forces to not know where the hospitals of Ukraine were. The latest such attack was on Mariupol hospital in a city that is surrounded by Russian forces and still holding out. Is that the reason why Russia is bombing medical facilities? The United Nations has already said intentional and direct attacks on hospitals are war crimes, and the American president went on and made an off-the-cuff remark saying, in fact, that he agrees that Putin is a war criminal.
You asked me whether I was called. Oh, I think he is a war criminal.
There is a consensus building in the capitals of Western democracies that Vladimir Putin of Russia is a war criminal. And one of the main reasons for that is this. Vladimir Putin's army is leveling the cities of Ukraine, and the hospitals of the invaded country are not being spared. The Russian army invading Ukraine have been accused of not making a distinction between civilian targets and military ones. The UN has already said intentional and direct attacks on hospitals are war crimes. The attack on the hospital in Mariupol killed 3 civilians, including a child. The 9th of March bombing of the hospital was the 3rd recorded instance of Russian direct attack on hospitals in Ukraine since the invasion began on 24th of February. What the Russian army is doing in Ukraine is not new. According to Action on Armed Violence, AOAV, a London-based research charity, hospital attacks had been a consistent feature of Russia's air campaign in Syria. Since Action on Armed Violence began recording the global casualties of explosive violence in 2011, they say they have recorded 12 incidents in which Russia has bombed hospitals. This photo has come to symbolize the Russian attack on Mariupol hospital. A pregnant woman lies wounded on a stretcher. According to the World Health Organization, this was one of the 43 attacks on healthcare workers, medical sites and facilities that WHO had documented in the Ukraine conflict. The pregnant woman evacuated from Mariupol hospital was rushed to a military hospital, where doctors tried to save her and her unborn child. The doctors performed an emergency cesarean section, but the baby showed no signs of life. One of the doctors attending to her said they tried to save the woman but failed. She died 30 minutes later. In the chaos of war, the woman's name was never recorded. Her body and the tiny body of her stillborn child were taken away by her family. Their identities unknown, their deaths, a further indictment of Vladimir Putin's army. The Office of UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, OHCHR, has verified 726 civilian deaths that included 52 children in Ukraine. The OHCHR has said that the real toll in Ukraine is actually much higher. Over 3 million people have fled to neighboring countries, and at least 1.9 million are internally displaced. Across the besieged country, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian civilians remain trapped. Men, women, and children, as Russian bombs continue to erase them from life.